Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, I'm your host, Mrs. M. And if you haven't, make sure you click the link below. That way you can subscribe to my channel and not miss out on anything you need to scale your business to six figures and beyond. How? So today I'm going to talk about what would I do if I were starting all over, had not already done the things I've done to be able to win multiple government contracts. What would I do? So the very first thing I would do would be to determine this. What am I looking to sell? So what am I looking to sell to the government? I would definitely look at that through my NAICS code. The next thing is I need to figure out who is going to be my buyer. So when I'm looking at who's going to be my buyer, I'm definitely going to come to Usaspending.gov. So if I were to go to Usaspending.gov, which is Usaspending.gov, I'm simply going to put in the information. So if I were to say, let's see, janitorial, let's go with janitorial in my keyword. So I'll put in janitorial. And then if I put in janitorial services, I would normally choose fiscal year 2022, 23, and 21. And then I would hit my submit search. Now, there are quite a few things you can do on Usaspending.gov. The primary thing you're looking for on Usaspending.gov is who is buying what you're selling right now. Then I'm going to choose categories, and it's going to tell me the Department of Health and Human Services are the #1 buyers. Now, what can I do with that information? So the next thing I would do is I'm going to choose setting up a pipeline where I can actually go to the agency, because the government isn't who I'm selling to. I'm selling to a particular person, and that's going to be my contracting officer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a particular agency, a department, then go into the agency, and then I'm narrowing it down to one individual person that I'm looking to become really, really, really acquainted with them and have them become acquainted with me. So what am I going to do to make that happen? Well, I'm going to look for three main areas. Sam.gov is if I'm looking for current bids. So if I go over to Sam.gov, I'm going to simply go in and put in, we'll go with janitorial, and then I'm going to go into advanced search. And then I'm going to come here and look at my notice type. And when I look at my notice type, what my goal is I'm going to look for the combined synopsis. So I'm going to choose that because that's usually going to be your quotes. So I'm looking for a RFQ, which is request for quote. So that's what I'm looking for if I'm looking for current bids. Anywhere between 40 and 60% of the bids that are current, you have a good chance of having them listed and being able to locate them absolutely free, even though I always suggest having a bidding platform, even if you bid and it's like $25 or $30. So I'm going to go to current bids with Sam.gov, and I may choose to do that on Monday. Let's say that's my Monday strategy. Now, what's the next thing? My next thing is if I am looking for forecasted bids, that means bids that are coming out, then I am going to go to Acquisition.gov. So Acquisition.gov is going to be forecasted. That means some that are coming out. So I have current bids on Sam.gov. If I want to know what's coming out, what's going to be forecasted, let's say I were to go to the Department of Agriculture and I click on here, and then I choose to go down to forecasted opportunities. And then it's going to give me a list of the forecasted opportunities. I can filter by various ways, but this is where I'm going to come to look for some bids that are coming in USDA. Now, I would probably connect the two, look for, which is when I went to Usaspending.gov, that's when they gave me my agency or department that was spending the most, Health and Human Services. So I would come to the next step would be to come on to the forecast for that particular agency or department and then put the two together. If they're the top spender, then I want to start looking at specific contracts that are going to be forecasted. So it's going to tell me fiscal year 2024, quarter 1. Well, I'm going to look for all the ones that are going to be in quarter 1. I'm going to look for the ones that are $25,000 to $250,000. That's my sweet spot. This is where the government contracting officer can choose to award that contract to me without any bidding if I am a good source. The next thing I'm going to do is then start figuring out what days am I going to market to look up when it comes to forecast. I might do that on Tuesdays. So as you see, I'm building a strategy because my goal is to target my ideal customer, not the entire government, not the entire federal government, but not just an agency, but I want to narrow it down to where I'm ending up building that one-on-one with the contracting officer. So that's why I'm going to narrow it down between the 25 to 250,000. You see, a lot of them may say 250 and one up to 4 million. I'm not going to look at those. I know that there's a lot more I have to do. I might have to have a lot of past performances. So I'm not going to pay attention to the ones that say 250,001. I'm going to pay attention to the ones that say 25 to 250,000. That's my sweet spot. And I hope that's what you kind of look at being your sweet spot. I love that. I want a lot of contracts with that. The next thing I'm going to do is if I'm looking at expiring contracts, I'm going to go to my old faithful fpds.gov, Federal Procurement Data System. And what I'm looking for on here is I'm looking for expiring contracts. So I've covered the current ones. I've looked at forecasted ones, the ones that are, coming out. I can narrow it down to what fiscal, what quarter. And then my last thing I'm going to look at is Federal Procurement Data System. This is going to tell me who's winning, how much, when it expires, and I'm going to narrow it down to a couple of months out on which ones are going to expire that I'm going to target. And my main goal is to target the contracting officer, which you can find that as well. Now I'm going to specifically look for them between that same price, between the 25 to 250,000 when I can put in my dollars obligated. I'm going to set up my filter. I'm putting certain dates that are going to be like 90 days in advance. That's what I'm looking at in the future because that's when they're going to expire. And the other thing I'm going to look at is how many bids have been received. I'm looking for a number between maybe anywhere from 1 to 3, preferably 3. That normally means that the contracting officer is looking to narrow it down with 3 or 4 contractors like ourselves, small businesses that they can target. And then the other thing I'm going to pay attention to is I am going to look for some that may have more than those bids that they receive. The main thing I'm focusing on is when they're going to expire, locating the contracting officer, which there's a way you can do that as well. You can filter that down. I'm going to put in my particular state. I'm going to look for my agency that I found on Usaspending.gov. And now I've got a list of targeted buyers that I'm going to now narrow down my search and focus on those 3 areas, which are going to be it's going to be Sam.gov, USA Spending is where I'm going to find them, Acquisition.gov, and fpds.gov. So those are the things that I did that allowed me to win bids time and time again. And this is what I teach to my students as well. So you can definitely implement that right now. I love to give you some actionable items you can take right now. So if I were looking at what would I do right now today, if I were just starting, that's how I get started. Narrow down my niche, focus on my buyer, focus on those 3, Sam.gov, Acquisition.gov, and fpds.gov. Those would be the areas that I would start building my pipeline, marketing directly, not to the department, not to the agency, but narrowing it down to the actual buyer, one-on-one individual that I'm looking to communicate with and to get them to understand that I've got something absolutely valuable that they want from me. And that is where I would get started and continue on until you begin to make those connections. Don't forget to reach out on LinkedIn and find who is buying what. Hopefully this will get you started. And I'd love for you to get started in government contracts. It's a world beyond what we can even imagine. And if you want to learn more, then guess what you can do? You can register for my free Lunch and Learn, my GovCon. I go into so many things, this and so much more on things you can do for actionable items that keep you for about an hour. So if you'd like to learn more, then click the link. Make sure you register for my free weekly GovCon Lunch and Learn series. Look forward to seeing you. And until next time, make sure that you be safe and take care. Bye-bye.